Mockingjay. May your aim be as true as your heart is pure. The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 is once again directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed the 2 previous entries in the series, and is directing the soon-to-be-released prequel, and also written by Peter Craig and Danny Strong, who wrote The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 and other movies. Check out the respective IMDb pages for the full listings of their work. Check out my reviews of the previous entries in this particular film franchise, and reunites everybody that didn't die in the previous film. Actually, not entirely true, because Philip Seymour Hoffman unfortunately did pass away around the end of the filming of the first movie, but they had also been filming scenes for this movie, and they decided, we're going to honor his memory, and we're going to just make sure that he's featured as much as possible, and find a way to add around the fact that he couldn't be in every single scene that his character was called for. It was a nice way to send off a talented actor like Philip Seymour Hoffman. Everybody, raise your spoons to the sky. Okay, let's just let this joke die. So, that being said, Katniss Everdeen is leading the charge as the Mockingjay, and President Coin, played by the incredibly gorgeous and talented Julianne Moore. Yes, maybe I will continue to profess my love for Julianne Moore. Shut up. As District 13 wants to reunite all the districts and just get them as a totally united front, get the loyalists to see their cause, and take down President Snow and bring peace and prosperity and equality to all the districts. But it won't be that easy. So, obviously, for those that kept up on the previous Hunger Games installments, a lot of what they were hoping would happen was paid off here. Now, I will say, as far as splitting the last book of a series into 2 movies, Twilight did that, Harry Potter did that, too much success. Even if, you know, those last 2 movies were stretched out a little bit too much just to maximize profits. And I don't blame them. You're a movie studio, you're trying to make the most money. Lionsgate felt the need to do that, and even though this one was, you know, that didn't quite, I think, succeed as much as the previous installments, it still was a rip-roaring success, to the point that now the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is going to be coming out very soon. Suzanne Collins released as a prequel, and they just rushed that goddamn thing to market, and we're going to see how that measures up. But let's talk about The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. So, $160 million budget. That was twice the budget of the first one, and $35 million more than Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. Kind of makes sense, because they blew up a lot of shit in this. And also, it had a $102.6 million opening, which was the lowest of the series, at least right now. About $282 million for U.S. gross. So, okay, it made a mint. Even with the advertising, it made a profit. And ended up making about $660 million worldwide. So, it was a success. But it was the law of diminishing returns. The biggest budget and the lowest. So, it's no wonder that, you know, maybe Lionsgate was like, okay, let's just take it easy on this. But then again, everybody's been apparently crying out for more Hunger Games. That's why we're getting a prequel coming up pretty soon. But nothing can prepare you for the end. Except if you've seen any movie or been outside for more than 5 goddamn minutes, and if you read the books. Even if you didn't read the books, this was easily the worst entry in the franchise, in my personal opinion. Now, basically at the end of the first part, Peeta had tried to kill Katniss because he'd been brainwashed, to where he would fear and try to attack Katniss as an enemy of the Capitol. And, you know, they moved this along quickly at first, but the thing is, this was just a few minutes shorter than the second and first installments, whereas the first, the first part of this was just over 2 hours. They could have easily cut 20 to 25 minutes out of this, and we wouldn't have missed shit, because there were some stretched out portions. I'm not saying, you shouldn't try to honor the book, but yeah, they need District 2 to basically, get the United Front going, but there's some loyalists, there's this, things aren't going all that well. They try to make amends with the good people there, and it becomes very obvious that President Coin is bound and determined to keep pushing and pushing and pushing this. There's this idea to trap the loyalists in this mountain and basically punish them. They either join the cause or they are completely eradicated. And then Katniss ends up getting shot. I say get shot because it was actually, some gear that Cinna, Lenny Kravitz, who passed away in a previous installment, he had made that she had kept. And it turns out it was bulletproof. Apparently. I guess they could have let us in on that, but nevertheless. Then President Snow gathers the remaining people around and says, you know, as one general, you have a habit of burying people before they're dead. And he poisons that guy because Snow is totally evil. Not the only one. And so, basically his idea is lure them in, get people back from the Capitol gates and the exterior parts, and then make the rebels, radicals, whatever, pay in blood. So, Joanna, played by Jenna Malone, is still not very happy with Katniss. Peeta is not doing all that well. Prim tries to reason with Peeta. That doesn't work out all that well. And Prim also is studying to be a nurse. More on that here in a bit. She mentioned that in part 1. And Peeta is like, he has memories that, you know, that he's not sure if they're real or not. Like, he's not sure what actually was put in his head. He knows that he did have affection for Katniss, but also he learned to basically hate her because of the pain that he suffered. And then he's like, why would I take a beating like that for you? And she said, because you're kind and generous. Apparently, Natalie Merchant took over Jennifer Lawrence there for a bit. If anybody gets that, that is a deep cut music reference. So, then Annie and Finnick from, you know, who were reunited near the end of part 1. It turns out actually that they were lovers. They weren't family members, but then again, during a post-apocalyptic dystopian future, it's hard to tell the difference. They get married, so one of them's fucked, literally. And the idea is that Katniss says, I'm going to take off, I'm going to go to the Capitol, and I'm going to kill Snow myself. And Gale says, well, that's fine, I'll go with you, whatever. They just basically want to reunite and form a new Panem with blackjack and hookers. More propaganda stuff and do it out in the battlefield because, as Pat Benatar, our Lord and Savior, once said, love is a battlefield. Also, there's a poison pill thing. If you get captured, immediately take this poison pill that looks like a weird ball bearing and you will die. And there's this thing called the Hollow. I just came to say Hollow. Oh, wait, it has the city capital plans of Hollow. Hollow. And I don't know what to do with this thing called the Hollow. Okay, I'm done. I'm done doing the song there. It's got the plans, and it's also got these things called pods or traps. And some have fire, some have guns. Apparently, these traps were, created by the Acme Corporation because none of them work. Except, like, one that sort of does, but that's only because of ineptitude on the part of the people trying to escape the trap. Natalie Dormer, I do have to say, is just fucking gorgeous. Not just in this, but just in general. And then there's this part where, you know, explosions happen, and Lieutenant Boggs, who you'll recognize the actor, I would screw his name up if I tried to say that, I believe the last name's Ali. He ends up giving command of the Hollow, this, you know, great electronic plan device thing, to Katniss, and then they have to escape this La Brea tar pit thing that just pops up. Like, it just suddenly oil or tar, I think it's oil, starts, you know, coming down, and it's going to consume them. Peeta also has a flashback to the fear therapy thing that they did with him, and attacks one guy and causes him to get killed and put up on wire. So I guess maybe the Acme traps work once in a while, as Wile E. Coyote found when he got shrunk down to size and was able to kidnap the Roadrunner. And yeah, they end up escaping up into this upper deck of a building. The Peacekeepers, a.k.a. the soldiers that never do anything right, somehow have not been able to stop these rebels, despite having all these weapons. The idea is, okay, suddenly everybody's dead. There are 2 soldiers that were killed because one was wounded and another was killed in this one assault by the Peacekeepers. They managed to take down a building, take down 2 people. Good job. It took you a bunch of missiles and bullets to take down 2 people. Good job. You done good. And Snow puts out a message, hey, she's dead. The Mockingjay is dead. President Coin pushes this whole goddamn thing, knowing that she's not dead. And then Peeta is just friggin' out. He's just friggin' out. My God, he's so freaking out. You know, these pods keep releasing these pods have all these traps and everything. It's totally ridiculous. They're surrounded. They're not going to get to Snow's building. But they do because they go underground. And then suddenly mutts get released. Release the hound, Smithers. The mutts are actually giant creatures that apparently were ripped out of the Descent without the women that went cave diving in a bloody cave. I think there's a lot of symbolism there. Let's move on. Yeah, we throw the camera around, people get killed, including Finnick. Nice knowing you, you idiot. And then the halo gets destroyed because you can say a word 3 times, kind of like Beetlejuice, 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 and then the thing explodes. So then all the mutts are dead. Peter's freaking out more. He doesn't know what's real, what's Memorex. And then they get him back up into a building where they start leveling it because Snow's bound and determined just level everything. Level everything. If the rebels, if I can't have it, the rebels can't. And then they're saved by some stylist from the original, or from the original games, the Hunger Games from the first movie, or the second movie, or possibly the 5th Hunger Games. I don't really know at this point. They were just throwing people out there. The movie both rewards you for paying attention, but also kind of insults you with how stretched out some of this stuff is. And then Peeta and Gale are debating, like, you know, who does Katniss love more? And Snow basically says, they're coming to bury us, haha. They're coming to bury us, ho-ho, hee-hee, haha. And Katniss and Gale, like, they're off to kill Snow. So really, by this point, we should be about an hour and, like, 15 minutes into the movie. And actually, I argue we should have just been about an hour into the movie, and this movie should have been about a brisk hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes. Katniss and Gale off to get Snow, and all the capital citizens are gathered at the gates. All this shit's going on. The children get taken because the children must be saved. We must preserve future generations. And then suddenly, this plane arrives and sends all this stuff. They're gifts on parachutes. And they explode. Everybody dies. Lance Archer was correct. If you're not a wrestling fan, you have no idea what I'm fucking talking about. Everybody blows up. Boom, 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 boom. And then medics suddenly show up. Medics show up very, very quickly. And then suddenly more explosions. Oh, wait. Prim was one of the medics. Oh, big fucking shock right there. Yeah, Snow just eradicated his own citizens and everything, didn't he? It was clearly Snow. Why would it be President Coin? President Coin was one of the good ones, wasn't she? I'm not saying the Snow wasn't evil. He was, but President Coin was no better. Katniss got used. All this stuff going on. Snow disappears. The more I think about it, the more this part kind of reminds me of the epilogue of Suikoden 2. And if anybody gets that goddamn reference, I love you guys. But yeah, everybody just gets bombed. Prim is leveled. And I guess Willow couldn't shield herself. Okay, I'm done now. And Coin is like, all ready to, have an election. Snow is in his greenhouse, still alive, not very healthy. And I said we still got 30 minutes left, and it feels like we got enough material for about maybe 15. So Snow says, I take life for specific reasons. It was Coin that did it. And he's right. Yeah, Snow did a lot of terrible things, and owns up to it. And Katniss is just a pawn. The idea is to have an interim president. How long will she be the interim president? Obviously, we're going to have, some kind of apartheid put on this whole goddamn thing. Execute Snow and then hold a symbolic Hunger Games with people from the capital so we can teach them a lesson. Learning nothing, that we are just going to end up being like them. The radicals might think, if they actually were led by anybody that wasn't a tyrant. And make the execution public. And then Mockingjay, may your aim be as true as your heart is pure. And she's going to shoot Snow with an arrow. No, she shoots Coin with an arrow. And then Snow laughs and gets killed by all the mob citizens. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, his character had given her a letter. He knew she was going to do that. He knew what Coin's plan was, but he couldn't say anything. He would have used her as part of this plan, but he would have used her for good. And basically, Elizabeth Banks goes with her for a bit, basically to give her a goodbye. But the only one that actually ends up going with her back to District 12 is Haymitch, Woody Harrelson. And now she's all upset. Too many pronouns, pal, sorry, Vince McMahon. She's all upset, like, you know, Jennifer Lawrence. She's just all upset. And the cat's there. The cat that apparently made it out of District 13 and made it back to District 12. I guess, back to the house that wasn't leveled somehow in the attacks. And she yells at the cat. She's dead, get out. And hugs the cat. The cat's like, what the hell did I do? I just want to meow, purr, and get fed. That was a big old cat, too. That was a big-ass, floofy cat. And then they have a new leader. A leader that is actually Paler, I believe is the name. If I remember right, she was the leader of District 2. And PETA's also there. They live a quiet life, and they have 2 kids. Smash cut to a few years later, and she says to her kid, daughter, or presumably very ugly inbred piece of... God, that kid, both those kids are ugly. Dear God, those parents should be ashamed. Nevertheless, enough about the ugly children. This isn't Hook. God, that kid was hideous. Let's move on. They have their life, and she says, one day I'll tell you about the nightmares and how I quell them and the good stuff that's happened in life. And then that ends. A movie that went on about 20, 30 minutes longer than it needed to. Definitely the weakest of the 4 movies. Now, that's not to say there weren't good parts. There were good parts with this. But again, it felt like it was treading familiar ground, and you can see why, even though this movie did make quite a bit, for the big budget, you would have thought this thing would have made quite a bit, but it made almost $100 million less than Part 2. As the word got out, it was a little bit padded. Nevertheless, on to The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. In a little bit, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.